I am Brad Keeler. He is Jeremy Varner. Find out next on Director's Cut why Atlanta is a better college town than Blacksburg. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keeler. I am the director of the Geo Institute. That is why we call this show Director's Cut. If you don't know anything about the Geo Institute, it is time you did. We are a technical society within the American Society of Civil Engineers. We have about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and geologists. Every week on this show, I sit down with a different GI member who tells us all kinds of facts about themselves. You may think I am going to hear some mundane things during this interview. You would be incorrect. It is exciting. 10 questions, all of which are entertaining. This week, we are joined from the Dirty South, Atlanta, the ATL, Jeremy Varner from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. He is also the chair of the GI Local Involvement Committee, which maybe we will talk a little bit more about later. Jeremy, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. And I'll say it's a great honor to now have the be second place on the record of number of appearances on the Director's Cut. Obviously, you're number one, but I think it's a bizarre happenstance in life that now I'm number two on that list. And
yeah, and this is episode 30, so it's 30 to 2, and then 28 people tied at 1. So you've got double the appearances. That's pretty solid. We will start your interview the same way we start every other interview. Describe your job in 45 seconds.
Okay. I'm a civil engineer at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, better known as FERC, and I work in the Division of Dam Safety and Inspection in the Atlanta Regional Office. We regulate, FERC has many missions. The Division of Dam Safety regulates non-federally owned hydroelectric dams. So that's generally power companies that have hydropower dams. In the Southeast, we do a lot of work with some big power companies like Duke Energy, Georgia Power, Alabama Power, Brookfield, Central River, just lots of different power companies. But there's also municipalities or cities that own a hydropower dam.
That's excellent. We will go right into a fun question, of which there will be many, before we talk a little bit more about your time at FERC. It's a simple one. What is your earliest memory?
It's simple, but it's also hard to answer. So I grew up in Lima, Peru. I was an expat living in Lima in the 80s and 90s. So I'm gonna have to go back to that time. And this, the memory I have is I think it's a real memory. I mean, I've seen pictures of this event happening, but I don't know if my memory is based on the pictures I've seen or like my actual memory, which if we wanted to talk about Blade Runner and implanted memories would be a great place to wander off to. And maybe those memories aren't even real. They've just been implanted. So in Lima, especially in the 80s and 90s, a common vehicle you'd see, a transportation device, is what they call the tricycle or triciclo. It was the two wheels in front, one wheel in back is a utility. It's basically a utility trailer of Lima. So the front was two wide wheels set with a platform on it. The platform was maybe 4 feet by 6 feet, like a small, and probably more closer to like 1 meter by 2 meters. Might have like a wooden platform, and then a pair of handlebars, and and just pedal. And the back end would be regular bicycle. So it's a very inexpensive utilitarian way to get goods around. Very commonly any sort of gardener or landscape guy would have his push reel mower and hedge trimmers and rake and stuff on the front of it. He'd bike around. Well, in our neighborhood in Lima and San Borja, there was this man that had one that had a dancing monkey on the front, like like you see in old movies. And he'd go through the neighborhood, and if you saw kids outside playing, he'd stop and have his dancing monkey, and your parents would give him some money, and I have like a very vague memory of this of experiencing that, and I've seen pictures of me and this dancing monkey, like my mom's got one, but I was probably around 3, so I think that's the earliest one I can go back to. Yeah, and but yeah, there's once you get to like kindergarten and stuff, it starts being easier to remember. But those really early toddler, infant, or not infant, but toddler stages are. I think that's the earliest I can go back.
I'm gonna say, as an outsider, of course, who wasn't actually there, that's a legit memory, because dancing monkeys are not easy to forget.
No,
in my opinion.
Well, no, they're there's when I I was it had this it had like bells and whistles on, and somehow it made music, and then the monkey did. It wasn't and it wasn't like some ape or whatever. It was just like some spider monkey that came out of the Amazon rainforest or whatever. So it wasn't as a 3-year-old, I was probably bigger than the monkey doing the dancing. But
still memorable.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
We now have to go back to FERC. You have spent pretty much your entire career at FERC. You have a .gov email address. Why is public service important to you?
I've been at FERC. I started as a co-op student at Georgia Tech in 2002. I was, after my freshman year, I was looking for a job and needed a co-op or internship, and FERC offered me one, and I've been there ever since. So in like 2 weeks, it'll be my 19th anniversary working for the federal government. And I'm not even 40. So some people think it's when I tell some people that, they're like, "Oh, that's amazing." It's something, all right. I'm not really sure it's amazing, but it's been I've been treated well. And it's funny to compare notes with especially my friends in software development, computer science, because they switch jobs a lot. I have a buddy, he's probably on his 8th job, who graduated a year behind me. And I'm like, I'm still plugging away at the same one. And it's just, civil engineering in general, people don't switch around a lot, but it's just, my career has been all in one place so far. And, some of my friends have been, they've been all over the place. A different software development friend had, I think in the first 4 years out of school, had 4 different jobs. Just because, a lot of transients in that industry. But yeah, it's, I wouldn't say, working for the federal government is, I haven't stayed around because of some high ideals about, working for the government or anything, but it's always, the job's been what I've needed it to be. It's been good to me. I started off needing a co-op job, and they were the only ones that gave me an offer, so I took it. So that was great. When I 07 and 0, when I started, got into undergrad, I was thinking about maybe doing something else, just because working in regulation is not the same as, you're not going to be doing a lot of design or other work that's what you really study in school, and what's I had more interest in it at the time. But I was also kind of interested in going to grad school, and FERC was willing to work with me on that. Work with my schedule. I was working full time, going to schedule part time, but they offered some flexibility there. Some of my regular training funds I was able to use for grad school. So they supported me when I was going to got my master's degree, which is great. Then I get all done with that, and it's 09, and the economy's in the tank, and and people are losing jobs, and I was able to maintain my job just fine. It's my experience of the the Great Recession is very different. I was aware of all the financial hardship going around, but in my personal life, I didn't feel it because I had the stay job. I was getting married, buying my first house, all that kind of stuff. Where other people were having to losing jobs and moving back home with their parents. To me, it was just the opposite. It was my ticket to really setting out on my own. And my wife and I starting our life together. And then since then it's been steady work. I think if I had to make a pitch to somebody looking for, considering federal employment, which, is always interesting in the Geo Institute, I'm kind of an oddball. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a consultant. And I'm not an equipment manufacturer. FERC doesn't own property. We're not even though there's other federal agencies, a lot of times NGI, a lot of them, the Corps, or, federal highways, a lot of, owners of the infrastructure, where FERC is, as far as hydropower dams, are only a regulator. We don't own the dams. So we're kind of this really weird, isolated set of engineers compared to other people in industry. So if I had to make a pitch for why somebody would want to do engineering work with the government, I'd say good work-life balance. We treated very well. I think we got good benefits. Very solid retirement program. It has 401k and a pension aspects to it, so you do great. I get a fair amount of travel, but none of it's all that arduous. You're not having to go out on the road for a month at a time. I've been able to see a lot of different parts of the country, which I really enjoyed. I've been to places I probably wouldn't, that are very beautiful, but you're not going to go there as a tourist. Right. You're not going to go to Northeast Oklahoma just to hang out. But I really enjoy. I've done a lot of work out there, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. And as far as working for, it is working for the government, but really we're working for the people of the United States.
Yep.
That's our real bosses, the people of the United States, and that's always, it gives you, some good warm feelings. And you don't have to you're not working to make the shareholders money. Mm-hmm. And if you're working for a company where you're not given the opportunity to have a stake in the company or really work for your own benefit, it's I think it's a nice alternative to that, working for the people of the United States and trying to make our country the best it can be.
And maybe, just maybe, you'll get a call from Frommers someday about a Northeast Oklahoma travel guide, and you will get to guest right on that.
Maybe.
Review all the finest diners, and
I'll send them to the Chicken Coop, or it's just the Coop in Disney, Oklahoma, and they can get some good fried chicken.
There you go. Shout out to the Coop. That was pretty good. So you can tell on your shirt, you can tell by the sculpture or the bobblehead behind you. Yep. You can tell if you talk to you for more than 5 minutes. You're a Georgian, even with all the time you spent in Peru as a kid.
Yep.
You also love music. In your opinion, why has the state of Georgia contributed so much significant music over the past 50 years? Whether you look at alternative rock or hip hop, country, whatever it is, Georgia's right there in the mix. What makes that happen?
That's it's a tough question to answer. As a science-based organization, I'd say it's hard to answer because there's no a control sample. We don't have two states, so we can adjust the variables, and Georgia A, and then the variables in Georgia B, and then Georgia C has no variables, and just kind of see how the music ends up. So any answer I give you should be correct then, because we just get the So I don't know if and thank you for smoking. Aaron Eckhart tells one of his talking to his son, and his teacher tells his son that he needs to write, what makes our country great. And there's a bunch of discussion there about, well, how you know if we're great or not. Once you assume that we're great, you can give any answer you want to. But that's a story for another day. But what makes Georgia music great? I don't really know, but I think that we have a few things going for us. One, we're big, we're a pretty good sized state where you got a lot of folks, and a big area. If you've seen any of the newest census data, we're also one of the most diverse states. And anytime you get a lot of different people working together or live, just a lot of different people, you have a lot of different ideas, and any one, the more different ideas you have, the more any one of them can take hold. So that helps out. I'd say we have real good soils between our coastal plain, Piedmont, Blue Ridge, and Valley, and Appalachian Plateau. There's all sorts of great different soils, and I'm sure that soil has led to a lot of different musicians really blooming. But you're right. We have, all sorts of great music. Now just today, one of my favorite rock bands, Manchester Orchestra, who's from the Atlanta area, they just released an album, which if anyone's into rock, I'd say check them out. They're streaming it on YouTube and everywhere else. So that's Manchester Orchestra. But hip hop, Atlanta hip hop is a huge deal. Outkast obviously is, if you're not talking about Outkast, then in your hip hop conversation, then you need to go back to school. But Ludacris, T.I., Goody Mob, Run the Jewels, Killer Mike's from Atlanta, LP's from New York, obviously, but in the 80s, out of Georgia, you got B-52s, REM, the whole thing in the Elephant Six Collective in Athens. I'm gonna be if it's Allman Brothers, from down near Macon. We got James Brown. One time about James Brown, I never quite understood. Like in high school, when people would talk about James Brown, I was always like, his music just didn't really it just didn't really get me or grab me. But then in college one time, I heard this live record. It's not Live at the Apollo. It was some other one, or maybe it was Live at the Apollo, just a different version. But the production was a lot more what I'd call newer production. So like a lot of the instrumentals, especially the bass was turned up. The bass line was turned up higher, and you could hear it a lot better. It's not just James Brown singing on some kind of quiet music. The music was a lot louder, had a lot more energy to it. And hearing that recording, and man, I wish I knew what recording it was. I've looked around for it. I just haven't found it. But there's a James Brown, some bootleg. But it was like when I heard that it had this, had this real punchy bass on it, and it was just, it was like, wow, that's awesome. It had, you got the energy from James Brown on that recording better than I had on any other recording, and I would imagine it's probably closer to what you experienced live at a concert. And that's kind of when I understood the power he had. But yeah, we've and going to school in Atlanta at Georgia Tech, it was great to be able to witness and experience a lot of music. So I don't know if I have the best answer for you. I just know that we've done very well, and it's a lot of fun to be here, get to see a lot of musicians. And I totally forgot the Drive-By Truckers, out of Athens. So they were great too, or they are great. And they've kind of moved around a lot. And when Jason Isbell was with them, now he's doing his own thing. He's in Nashville, but there's just tons of musicians.
So then we have to segue into a Georgia Tech question because you mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's an urban campus.
Yes.
I went to undergrad on an urban campus. I know it's very, very different than if you go to school in a college town. I worked off campus in downtown Philadelphia. I had a much different life, I think, than a lot of kids who were at Penn State or Virginia Tech or University of Iowa or wherever. What were you able to do at Georgia Tech because it was an urban campus that you wouldn't have been able to do in a college town?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think I do need to preface any answer with saying, the Georgia Tech and the Atlanta I went to is different than the Atlanta that exists now. We've seen a great change in American cities in the last, 20 to 30 years. But there's Atlanta's grown a ton since I was in school in the early 2000s. And just rent's gone up a lot is probably the critical part for where students are concerned. And it's a lot harder to pay rent now in Atlanta than it was back when I was in school. Rent was about $1 a square foot, roughly, and now it's close to like $2 a square foot, which is a big difference. But with that aside, there's a few different things I could highlight. One is just a diversity of experiences. You're in a huge metro Atlanta area. It's very big, very diverse. If you want most any kind of cuisine in the world, there's a very good chance Atlanta is going to have it somewhere, at least one. And, in many cases, multiple restaurants. So, if you're going to go study abroad somewhere, or maybe you don't have the money, but you still want to eat, Vietnamese food made by Vietnamese people, or Colombian food made by Colombian people, whatever, you can find it in Atlanta. There's tons of places to eat, all sorts of great places to eat. Lots of stuff to do. Sports, lots of stuff to do. We got the Falcons, we got the Braves, we got the Hawks, we got Atlanta United. When I was in school, we still had the Atlanta Thrashers for a brief period of time before they ran back up to Canada. We have a lacrosse team in Gwinnett County. There's obviously Georgia Tech. We got the College Football Hall of Fame. We had the Super Bowl not long ago. We have lots of different sporting events. We've had the Olympics, even though, that wasn't when I was in school. But there's been lots of, there's a lot of sporting stuff going on. Obviously lots of art, but just a lot of different experiences. As far as the urban aspects are concerned, I think as a civil engineer is interesting because you can see where. You can see examples of where infrastructure merges well with the built environment and the natural environment and the natural world work well together, and the infrastructure allows the natural process to continue without harming the natural world. But at the same time, you see plenty of examples where it's just cut down the trees, flatten everything, and put the stream into a culvert underneath the road and just make it disappear. So you can kind of see the whole scale of where engineers and conservation and nature can come together, and where it works well and where it doesn't. Atlanta, they talk about a city in the forest. We do have a lot of trees, but as we develop more and more, we're losing some of those trees. But just seeing how some areas work with the trees to improve their development. So that's kind of more for an engineering aspect to living in Atlanta specifically. But those are kind of broader topics. I'd say specific to Atlanta. First off, I'd like just being able to live, especially when I was in school, being able to live in a city where you still could have a personal connection with leaders of the civil rights movement. So I went to Georgia Tech, and then I stayed living in Atlanta, till this day. And so my representative in Congress was John Lewis for all but a couple of months when I was in between when I turned 18 in high school to when I moved to Georgia Tech. There were a couple of months there where I was a voter and and he wasn't my representative. And then after he passed away recently, but the rest of the time he was my representative. And John Lewis is a great leader who believed in voting so much that he led the walk from Selma to Montgomery, and Bloody Sunday on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, got his head cracked open, just because he believed in democracy and people's ability to vote and their right to vote. And so, and then he was my personal representative in Congress, which is great. You'd go to a neighborhood festival like the Inman Park Festival, and he'd be there, go on the parade. And this is, it's a big neighborhood festival, but, there's, I don't know if there are 10,000 people, probably not that many, just people in the neighborhood hanging out. He's, there's this guy who did this great work for the civil rights. And he's not just some black and white photo. He's an actual living person. And getting to have that connection was really cool. And then less serious, I'd say, music. Just the ability to being in Atlanta, we had tons of bands coming through. I really enjoy music. I like going to concerts or shows, whatever you want to call them. One of the main activities when I was in school, outside the classroom itself, was working for the Georgia Tech radio station, WREK 91.1 FM, which is a 100,000 watt station, one of the few student stations with that much power. And they've been broadcasting online since the 90s. They're one of the first radio stations to go to broadcast online, which was a major step forward. But so I was working at WRK, and then with the indie rock scene of the early 2000s, it was a great time to be in Atlanta. So you get, I got to see bands like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Interpol. I saw Regina Spektor open up for Kings of Leon, who were opening up for the Strokes one time. So what a killer lineup. My first time seeing the Black Keys was in December of 2002. Me and some friends were going to see this surf rock band called Little Straight Jackets. They were doing a Christmas special. We're doing surf rock versions of Christmas songs, and this, the opener was these two dudes from Akron, who, I was just like two dudes, but they had this really good bluesy rock set. And later I found out they were the Black Keys. They had just come out with their new album, or their first album. And they were, touring out of a van. And, that's my best story of seeing a band when they're small to watching them grow. And they got a new album coming out in May. And I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I was getting free tickets to these shows for my work at the radio station. So I just went all the time, all sorts of different stuff. I went to stuff I wasn't all that big, all that much of a fan of, just to kind of go. I went to some emo shows.
If it's free and it's there, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you know who Something Corporate or Thursday are.
Got to think back a little bit.
But there's I know you're a hardcore guy, but if you took hardcore and then, took all the energy out of it and turned it into emo, Something Corporate was this emo band. But some other friends wanted to go, and I didn't really like it. But hey, I got this free ticket, so you might as well go. But and then outside of rock, being in Atlanta, we also have there's a lot of school, Emory, Georgia State, and both of them have a really strong music program. So they would do these free concerts. So you go get to see these Emory kids play, classical music, and I'm not really well versed in the lingo, but I got, the Emory kids were doing a special on Bach's fugues, and that was really cool. You get the fugues are, if you don't know much about a fugue, they have one theme and then they repeat the theme multiple ways. And, if you like I don't know, it's just a neat, any sort of music teacher out there is probably dying talking about this, but they have a melody theme, and different people in the orchestra share the melody, and they play it faster or play it one way and play it another, and it's really cool. But just being able to, as much as you're going to this hard engineering and science school, to see those other arts kids out there doing it, it's a good experience. So yeah, if I had to sum it up, I'd say big urban environment. You have a lot of diversity of experiences. Um, Atlanta is fairly tied into its natural world, which is cool to see. Um, seeing people who live the civil rights movement still exist. It's still be leaders in the community, um, and uh, um, and then just my love of music and experiences with music that you're not going to get at some other school. And I don't want to pick on Virginia Tech too much, even though
even though we did it at the beginning of the show,
even though we're better. Georgia Tech has the #1 undergraduate civil engineering program in the country, according to U.S. News and World Report. So everyone else can get in line behind us. But I loved my time at in Atlanta, and I'm sure going to Clemson or Auburn. I had a cousin that went to App State, which is in Boone, North Carolina, and it's gorgeous campus, tiny little town up in the mountains. And I could see the appeal, but I just liked living in a big city, so I guess that's what I'm used to.
So we're going to ask another question that probably takes you back to college now. This is the other question that we ask everybody as we start the second half of the list here. How did you first get involved with ASCE and GI?
Well, it's not through school. I know a lot of people will say, through grad
You're
school.
You're breaking the mold here. Almost everybody.
Yeah, it's just that. Hey man, we all have our own stories. In undergraduate, I'd go to the Georgia Tech ASE group had they had Tuesday. I think it was Tuesdays, like once a month, or was it maybe every other week. They had like a lunch meeting where a company would come in. They'd bring us pizza and give us a talk. And I'd go occasionally, but I just never really got involved. With steel bridge or concrete canoe. I just I wasn't that strong of a student for So I was more of I was one time heard somebody referred to as a gentleman C student. I was like a gentleman B C student. I did enough to get out, but I wasn't staying in the school building any longer than I had to. So I just didn't get involved with it. I was doing radio station stuff. I was just off, having fun. But then once I got out and I got on the workforce, a gentleman in my office, Keith Kessler, he was on the steering committee of the Georgia GI chapter at the time. And he'd always encouraged me to come to meetings, and I went to a few, not near as many as I should have, but I was going to some of the meetings. And then he was stepping off the steering committee, and he's like, well, it's we like to have a balance of folks on the steering committee. It'd be great if we could get another federal employee on there, because right now it was going to be a bunch of contractors and consultants, and a few manufacturers. And I was like, and I hemmed and hawed, and I was like, I don't know, I don't have the time. Even though all I was doing my time was going to trivia nights at the bar or whatever.
You got to set your priorities. I mean,
before you have kids and too much responsibility, you don't understand how much free time you actually have. I really appreciate Keith and his persistence, because he kept he stuck at it for quite a few months. And I'm not really sure why. I just know he thought I'd be a good fit for some reason, or just thought would be good, and he kept asking me to get involved in the committee, and then I did. I finally relented, and I'm really glad. I just really appreciate Keith for getting me involved, but then also everyone else on the committee for who I didn't have a whole lot. My resume wasn't impressive at the time, but they, I showed up and said I'd be willing to work. And so a bunch of leaders, we had, John Wallasick, leader at Hayward Baker, but he was still, involved in the local chapter. Joel Galt from Georgia Power, he was doing a lot. Mike Turner, Louis Babler, Greg Hebler from Golder, a bunch of these guys, helped me get involved and just do, and understand how to help run a local chapter. And then, eventually I became like speaker coordinator, then secretary, then chapter chair. And that was great. I just kept, there's a lot to be said for just showing up and being willing to work.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually you learn how to do something and you can do it well. And then, eventually you get to, start, in a position of leadership. And then from there, I feel like it's just been, I don't, never had this huge plan to like go far in GI, but I was working on one task. And then once that finished up, I just had an opportunity to do something else. So, after I was chair of the local chapter for a while, I got the opportunity to join the local involvement committee, which for those who don't know what the local involvement committee is, it's a board level committee within GI, and our role is to bridge the gap between GI as a national organization and the local chapters. So we have representatives covering the different regions of the country, coordinating with the local chapters to make sure they get the support they need from GI, but also that they understand the resources GI has to support them. The Georgia chapter actually predates the Geo Institute as an organization. They were just a ASE Geotechnical Committee in Georgia, operating out of Atlanta. They were very successful, did their own thing, but now that we're part of GI, there's a lot of stuff that GI can do that help us do, like the cross country lecturer, and lectures from the from the Technical Resource Speakers Bureau. Mm-hmm. These great national level resources, and the LIC just tries to help make sure folks know that. And also, when chapters have good events, just the LIC can help it get the word out there nationally. Such as like the Carolinas, we've had some information come out about the Carolinas chapters having their Carolinas conference in September. It's their big every 18-month conference. But yeah, so started working on the LIC, and then after a while, Dan Mart, who was leading the LIC, he decided he wanted to take a break, and he asked me to chair it. So I was like, okay, I've had other opportunities. I joined the Embankments, Dams, and Slopes Technical Committee, just because I felt I should be on it since I was working in dams so much. At least just be join that technical committee, just to be a voice and learn as much as I could. And then Tim Stark and Farshid are putting on the. They're leading the team putting on Geo Extreme in Savannah, Georgia, this November, and at the, I guess it was at Geo Congress in Minneapolis. They asked me, they were looking for volunteers from the EDS committee to be involved, and I said, well, I'm in Georgia, I can probably help out to some extent, and I never helped plan a big conference or anything, and they got me involved, and it's been cool. I've been able to help out a little bit, get some help plan a few small things, but it's been really rewarding being part of a big really cool dynamic team like that. So yeah, as far as ASE, like I never really had great big plans, but it's just I started off small doing a few things, and then I kept getting new opportunities and just taking those to. So I don't know where, what I'll end up doing or where my GI time will take me, but I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a lot of fun.
So stick with it is probably the message to all those members out there who think, how can I do more and when will it happen for me? Or you can always just reach out and we'll tell you what the opportunities are. And that goes for the LIC specifically too, I think.
Yeah, we had Matthew from Tennessee just reached out and he's like, hey, I like your committee. I'd like to join. And we didn't have a spot for him, but, I'm not going to turn down a willing volunteer. Many hands make light work. So, basically, in my experience at GI, is if you're willing to do something, most people are going to let you do it. I mean, within reason. I mean, if you just show up and be like, I've never done a conference before, but I want to do this,
yeah, we'll turn you away if you try that. I'll back you up on that one. We won't accept that.
But if there's a committee if there's an area of practice you like, there's a committee that works in that area, and you can get involved with. And the other side of the coin on that is, if you're a senior leader or whatever, and there's a young person who's, you think would be a good fit, stick at it. I don't know why I told Keith I wasn't interested. I just, didn't think I'd be into it, but I really appreciate that he stuck after it and was persistent, because it's been really good for me. And I like to think that I've contributed positively to the organization. So it's been good for GI as well.
So we got to ask another Georgia Tech question here. For several years, you're involved in Georgia Tech's mentoring program. What did you gain from that? And why do you think mentoring is important? And maybe go beyond, everybody can make the general mentoring is good kind of thing, but maybe we can go deeper than that.
So Georgia Tech has a mentor program called GT Mentor Jackets, and I've only done it once, but it was like for me and the student, Megan, we got hooked. I think we stayed talking to each other for like 3 years, or 2.5. I just thought it was, it was like I was out of school. It was before my son was born. But I guess just missing school life or whatever. But I heard about it from my friend Darby, who was running the program at the time, and I just I was like, that'd be cool. Hang out with some students and or a student, just talk about school. And it ended up being really rewarding. Because Megan, the student I was working with, she was having a lot of the same struggles I had, and just being able to share, what had worked for me, and you may try to give her some experiences you've had that can help her find success, and get her going to where she wants to go. So that was really, I thought, very rewarding. As far as mentoring in general, I guess the easiest way, there's a lot of people, I've seen some, motivational phrases that are, be the person you need when you were younger. And that's really, to me, what mentorship really is. I mean, there's, if I could sum it up in ways, it's, being who you need when you were a young professional. I think it, there's a whole lot of folks have different struggles. We all have our own unique paths and unique struggles and unique solutions. But a lot of times there's people in very similar situations, and they could use, a hand up, or, just encouraging word, or just, a good, maybe something you found that, they hadn't thought of that works for them. And I think mentoring can be like, it doesn't always have to be a really formal aspect or formal program. It can be as simple as just making sure that when your company hires someone new, that you get them, help them learn the ropes at your company, help them get involved in GI. The Georgia chapter is actually starting. Once we return to in-person sessions, the Georgia chapter is going to start. Is going to try a mentor program specifically within the chapter. So it'll be a way to team existing chapter members with students and young professionals who are new to GI, and just as a way to help them get plugged in better. So they have, when they go into the meetings, they have a friendly, known face to hang out with, somebody to talk to. Because, a lot of our chapters, one reason they're popular is because you get to go see all your school friends or your work friends.
Right.
You just go hang out with these people in industry. And again, and which is a great thing. That that camaraderie and networking, just friendship, is what makes the industry great. But at the same time, if you're a new person coming in, it can make it hard to break into that because everyone's they've been going on vacation forever, together or whatever. They've been working together for a long time. And so we're going to try that at a chapter level. So get, senior members with new members and just help those new members get plugged in. But yeah, I think mentorship's great. Any way you want to do it, just helping out the people coming after you.
That is great. And if anybody would like more information on that chapter initiative, I think you can certainly reach out to Jeremy. You can find his information on our website as the LIC contact, or you can come through me and we can definitely connect you. We've got 3 questions left, and I don't know, we'll say 2 are fun and 1 is professional. First one is, I know you're a big Atlanta sports fan. It came up earlier in the conversation too. Other than Hank Aaron's 715th home run, which to me that would be the biggie, what is your favorite moment in Atlanta sports history?
The '95 World Series, without a doubt. The Braves beat the Indians. It was great. I was still living in Peru, expat life, 13 at the time, so that kind of that magical time period, a young man, where you might be halfway decent at baseball and you have a lot of dreams of being real good, and going on to beat Chipper Jones, which I still hope I magically wake up one day with Chipper Jones's baseball ability. In his prime. I think
also at that age too, it's like the most important thing in your life. I think that's other things haven't cropped in yet to take over.
No, there's nothing outside of the sports. I mean, you like live and breathe it. I mean, the travel days are terrible. Like, they're flying from Atlanta to Cleveland. They don't play a game. Like, you're like, 24 hours and no baseball. It's terrible. But Lima, Peru. We had gotten cable like the year before. We were watching. Had ESPN. National sports broadcasts, and the World Series was on. My dad. My dad and all his family, longtime Atlanta fans, and he had grown up big time Atlanta fan. They were had been terrible for so long, and then they started the '90s they got good, I don't know. There may have been one other group of people in Lima watching Atlanta beat Cleveland, but I'm not really sure. But it was so exciting. Like, it was just sheer delight. And the cool thing about during the pandemic, the Braves and I think it was Fox Sports rebroadcast the '95 World Series last year because 25th anniversary, and you got the and not just highlights, like the whole, like, just broadcast the whole game, all of them, even the ones they lost, and it was really, as a kid and your team does well and they win, well, obviously they should have, that's what they're supposed to do. When in '96 when we lost to the Yankees, it was just like, it just planted the seed of a lifetime of hatred for the Yankees, and they're just evil, awful people. They're the scourge of the earth. They took away the victory that belonged to Atlanta. They stole it away from us. In '95, the Braves won. Well, yeah, because they're the best, obviously. But then watching it now as an adult, it was really amazing to see how good the team was, just how good the pitching was.
Right.
Watching, Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz and Avery as an adult, as a kid, you knew they were good pitchers, but they were just like no one was getting hits off of them. They were just so good, and so dominant, and that was just really neat to watch. Also, now it's just baseball changes. It's a lot of walks and big home runs, or people doing the shift, and back in the '90s they're still doing some small ball, which I find more aesthetically pleasing. It's just cool to watch.
We'll point out 2 Michiganders in that starting rotation in Smoltz and Avery there. for anybody keeping score.
And one, Rafael Belliard, who is not the starting shortstop, but what's his name? Lemke. Blauser is hurt, so Belliard had to fill in, and Belliard was like really good, great defense, but he wasn't known for his hitting.
I think that's an understatement.
I think his average was like 0.17. It was not great. And like nowadays, you just like everyone is pretty. Any fielding player has to be a good hitter as well. You didn't have like the small guy playing center infield that was like a career singles hitter, but man had he was quick and he had that good defense. So it's just an interesting thing to have that time warp and to go back and watch those games. But yeah, man, I loved. Yeah, it was great. I loved it so much. It was awesome.
So we got one serious question now. We'll get that out of the way. And the last one, I guess, could be serious if you want it to be. I'm really building the suspense for that.
Yeah.
So you work in dam safety in the Southeast. I think it's probably safe to say that every day you see the legacy and the current work of the TVA, which, of course, has been around since the 1930s. What do you think was the most important aspect of that agency's work when it was created? So you got to think back. Think about what they did then, what it is now, what has remained as that core guiding principle, I guess, or physical specimen of their work.
Well, I'll first start off saying even working for we don't regulate TVAs. It's its own it's a federally owned hydro. So I just want to make sure the listeners are clear the distinction there. But yeah, we see TVA a lot. They we don't have many dams in Tennessee because they're all TVA dams. But yeah, I think it's a great question. TVA is this really interesting phenomenon where you have, basically FDR saying we need electricity in this region and we need to develop it, and no one else. The Tennessee Valley was just it was just a poor area. It's a lot of mountains, so there's not great cropland. There's some farming in the valley, but a lot of that slope, hillside, you're not going to grow a lot of crops on. So, it just in the even in the 30s, it was just struggling. It was, there just wasn't, they had some mining, where there was mineable materials or materials with a lot of value to it, but a lot of it, there's not a lot of mines. I think the really cool legacy was, and kind of it all goes with the New Deal, is just an investment. A lot you could think of the New Deal as just a way to get people to work, but I always see it as a lot of it was an investment in America. TVA was a great investment in providing, renewable electricity. A lot of TVA dams also, provide drinking water, municipal water supply, transportation through the lock systems. They can have, a lot of times hydropower will support nuclear power generation by having cooling water, but also just the investment in the whole Tennessee Valley area, Tennessee, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, bringing that development in really turned around those areas. I don't think cities like Knoxville, Nashville, Chattanooga would be where they are today if it hadn't been for TVA. If you want to expand on, not just TVA, but also other things like the Civil Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration, being an investment in America. I enjoy, working at, one reason I like working in hydropower dams, you get a lot of time outside, and I just like being outside. So I spend a lot of time in state parks, national parks, And at the same time they were doing TVA, they were also having all those folks build national parks. And there's another great investment in America where they're putting a lot of effort and resources into making these, national parks, public spaces where we can maintain wilderness areas, or just, places for people to recreate and get tied into nature. And if we want to fast forward to today, there is President Biden has an infrastructure bill. We're not going to discuss the details of the bill or any sort of policy things, but just the concept of investing in America, I think is great and very necessary. ASCE has a report card. A lot of our infrastructure is not in great. It's overtaxed. It's old. It was built a long time ago. The ways the community is using the infrastructure have changed a lot. The demands on this infrastructure have changed, and it's always a good time to invest in yourself. Investing in infrastructure, also, with the passage of the America the Beautiful bill last year, investing in a lot of national parks and public lands, I think can help out because, as much as our infrastructure is, getting overtaxed, a lot of our public lands are, getting a lot of use too, which is great. People love national parks, but you can almost love a national park to death where it's so many people. Right. It can really impact the wildlife there. I see TVA and we'll focus, stay focused on TVA, but I see it as a great investment in the country as a whole, but specifically that Tennessee Valley area that's was having a hard time catching up with the rest of the country up until TVA came in.
So we're going to close with this question, and this is probably the craziest one in here. By the way, everybody watching, I come up with all these questions from scratch. And sometimes I come up with one that I don't even know where it came from. And
fortunately, he lets us know more or less what he's going to ask ahead of time so you can think about it. Because I've been thinking about this one coming up, and it took me a while to come up with a good answer.
So, here's the situation. You're abducted by aliens and taken to a planet where no one can speak your language. How do you show them you're a civil engineer?
I wanted to have a really witty answer about like wearing safety gear and dipping and sitting in a trailer with mud on your boots or something like that. But it's just none of it was very good. So then I started thinking about how you communicate, communication across languages. So that led me to one of I'd say one of the best movies I've seen in the last few years is Arrival, which has Amy Adams in it. She's a linguist, and there's some aliens come to Earth and they're trying to communicate with humans, and it's just they're having challenges. And so you talk about not speaking your language. There's a lot of I think if the aliens had communicated by sound, you could maybe figure something out. But yeah, like the language. I took one linguistics class at Tech, and they talk a lot in linguistics, the connection between language and thought, and how your language can, the language you speak can, have a big impact on the way you think. And in Arrival, that's kind of a whole, part of the movie. These aliens use these symbols. They're like these circular symbols, but the whole symbol is like one phrase, and they can do a bunch of them. But also, there's a time dimension to their communication, which is all very challenging. How do you communicate with somebody that just has a completely different communication method from you? If it's a spoken voice, they manipulate sound waves to carry meaning. That's what humans do. So that would be one way to start off with. And they do have visual communication. Well, humans can also do that. Yeah, anything from hieroglyphics to drawings or actual writing, symbology. You could maybe figure out a way to communicate there. But what if they do something else? Like, what if they communicate by smell? Insects communicate a lot by smell. And with humans, we never really, it's just like you smell things, but you don't think about them carrying meaning. Even though, like natural gas, we put a smelly substance in as a communication stamp. That is a communication. And if you were in some advanced society that was communicating by smell, which I had never thought about till I read a book by David O. Wilson, who's this biologist, does a lot of work with ants. He had this great book called Letters to a Young Scientist, which I'd recommend to any young scientist or engineer in research. I think it's just great. But he talks about how ants communicate a lot by pheromones and by smell. And so if you're abducted by an alien nation that communicates by smell, what if you don't even realize that their communication is going on? Like you're trying to get your point, like they're having a conversation that that you can't even detect. Like you're completely unaware that there's something going on. I think that'd be very challenging. Or any other, maybe they communicate by radio waves. Well, then you're really, unless you carry a radio with you. And then, another movie I like is 13th Warrior, which is mostly because I like the movie's probably, some people don't like it, but I liked it. If you like Beowulf or, the Song of Roland or the Epic of Gilgamesh or anything like that, you'd probably like it. But in it, Antonio Banderas' character learns Viking language. He says by listening. So I think if you want to communicate to foreign culture, the first thing is figuring out how they communicate. You have to listen. You have to figure out what communication is going to work for them. If I just show, because if you're talking about how you talk about you're a civil engineer, well, you could think that's a pretty weird concept, because like if a tiger goes to explain, he's just going to talk about being a tiger. So you're not just going to go talk about being a human, being a civil engineer. It's a profession that human does, but it's not like a tiger is just a tiger. I mean, he eats the deer because that's what he does. The beaver builds the dam because that's what the beaver does. The beaver's not an engineer. He's just a beaver. So if an alien abducts you, how do you get across that you're a special set of human that does this special role, and then you have to get beyond just building things. I mean, engineering is there's like this continuum of building things. As anywhere from just like a bunch of kids making dams out in the creek out back to actually building dams based on engineering principles. Trying to communicate a special role you have, I think would be really challenging. I don't have. I guess the main thing.
But that's an answer. I thought you were going to go with mud on the boots or something like that. This is intense.
I mean, if we wanted to talk about engineering and going back to TVA and Work Progress Administration, you have to avoid. Sometimes what if you communicate that you were building a dam, and the message they got is that you're destroying nature, and impacting, and you're trying to kill, prevent the migration of fish, affect sediment transport, or you're have a flood control dam, and you think that's a positive thing, but they think that's a negative thing because you're impacting the natural resource, the natural cycles. That's a big challenge. Obviously engineering can have a big impact on the natural environment, but we have to work hard to make sure we don't. But how you communicate that? I'd say the first step would be trying to figure out how they communicate, and then and then go from there. It would not be an easy process and might never be accomplished. They'd probably kill me first and dissect me, and then be like, "Oh, he died. Uh-oh."
And then tell everybody in their culture that civil engineers taste great after they figured out what you are.
Yeah, like, oh, look at this resource.
Well, that was good. That was a good answer. And very thoughtful answers to all the questions today. And we have made it through. If you liked what you saw today, and as I always say, if you are still here, you probably did, check out all our other episodes of Director's Cut. Subscribe to the GI YouTube channel. Click Get Notifications. We will let you know every single time that we post a video to the YouTube channel, which is frequently. Jeremy, thanks for doing this today.
Oh,
this
my
was
pleasure.
fun.
Thank you. Hopefully I wasn't too long-winded, but I did enjoy it. And Brad, thanks for just doing these director's cuts. I've been able to learn a lot about different GI members, and it's been really delightful.
We're going to keep them up. I got a long list. It's never going to end. And thanks again, Jeremy, and we will see everybody next week.